Salvē, Mika, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the last two verses of John chapter 4, that being 53 and 54. But first, last time and for the last time in John chapter 4. There's that. Here's a rubric, everything we look for as we go through the text. Let's get started. Cognovit ergo pater quia illa hora erat in qua dixit ei Jesus. Filius tuus vivet, et credidit ipse et domus eius tota. Hoc iterum secundum signum fecit Jesus, cum venisset a Judaea in Galilaea. There we have that. This is the wrong pen. Back. Here we go. Now I've got burgundy. Cognovit it as our ending right there. Cognosco, cognoscere, cognovi. So the V should tell us that this is going to be the third singular perfect tense, active and indicative. It's wonderful when I can actually remember all the forms of a verb. Ergo, therefore, pater, pater, patris, patri. Yes, third declension. I always want to form pater as puer, but no. Puer is a second. Pater and mater are thirds. So that's nominative, singular, masculine. Quia introduces a new clause, so we can go ahead and write this down. Quia, that. Illa, hora, those two go together. Erat, from sum, esse fui. Third, singular, imperfect tense. Probably put an im there, not an in. Active and indicative. Prepositional phrase as the predicate with hora. Hora is feminine. Erat needs a singular subject, which is what we can't find in here. It shouldn't be any other form. Linguistically, not linguistically, grammatically. There we go. Nominative, singular, feminine. In plus the ablative from qui, quae, quod. Singular and feminine to go with hora as the referent. In which Dixit, seen that too many times beforehand to bother. A, again, too many times. Jesus, again, too many times. Filius, I think, is going to be beginning. Yeah, Filius begins a new clause that is direct statement. We know it's direct statement because tuus, which is that word I couldn't find in the last Latin video. Tuus owning Filius, us right there. Nominative, singular, masculine. Possessive form with Filius, vivet, it. That's going to enter new clause, so close quotes. We will, we were, we. So this could be another one of those instances of either a present tense or a perfect tense verb. And in the Greek, we have ze, zeta, eta, sub, iota, which is the present tense. So I'm going to write down both options as I did in the last video for a different word and circle the present tense as the correct one, at least according to the Greek. And then, of course, write down all of this. Moving on, et, and, credidit, credo, credere, credidi. So with our reduplication here, we know this is going to be the perfect tense. So third, singular, perfect, rather than the present, previous, active, and indicative. With ipse, from ipse, ipsa, ipsum. Yes, ipsum. Our nominative, singular, reflexive. It's not quite as reflexive as say is, but normally we would translate this as self. I think I say that each time we run into this, but it just means him in this case, telling us that it is a new subject. So it's not Jesus, it's going back to the man who is in the present of the events right here. This looked back, but once we return to the time of cognovit, which is what this is, we now return to himself. I think that explains why it's ipse rather than is, which would be another way of changing subjects. I wonder if that's been the case every time. I just haven't noticed that it all has to do with the temporal events. Anyway, et domus, domus. This is a nominative or genitive or nominative plural or accusative plural, feminine. We don't need a plural because he's a noble, so maybe he has more than one household, but that doesn't make much sense. So instead, nominative, singular, feminine, as the house standing for the family. Makes most sense. Eus from is ed, don't need to translate that. Oh, tota, duh. Should have looked at tota. With that A right there, we know this is going to be either nominative singular, ablative singular, or, neuter something, plural. Domus is not neuter, so nominative or ablative are the only two options. We don't need an ablative, and this conjunction can only join two things of the same type. Ipse is nominative, so domus should be nominative, so tota should be nominative, telling us also singular. And then we just assume this verb again. Credit ipse et credit domus. Verse 54, hoc iterum, so I'm going to go ahead and write down iterum again. Hoc, I'm going to be modifying secundum, going to be modifying signum. It's Jesus with us as our subject. With fecit, we have the E in there, so we know this is going to be the perfect form. I'm just going to pull down creditit, since they are identical. Cum, new phrase right there. Signum is accusative as our direct object, singular and neuter. Secundum, because of the UM, I'm going to also be modifying that. It's on a different line, so I'll write it down again. The fringe has stopped. It's a relief. Hoc, hic, hike, hoc. We clearly have our neuter in there. I go using clearly again. Maybe when we get to chapter 5, I'll switch to a different verb than a verb word. Different adverb. Whatever. So, second sign. This should immediately remind us of the first sign that Jesus did, and that would be at the wedding at Cana. And why is John bringing this up? Well, I have thoughts on this. I'm like that dinosaur in Dr. McNinja. I have opinions. No. Why is John specifically reminding us, not only that this is not telling us that this is the second sign, but getting us to remember the wedding at Cana? Well, what is going on with Jesus as he goes through the book of John? He's undoing the fallen nature of the world and of humanity. So you go back to Adam and Eve. Eve eats the apple, gives it to Adam. Adam sins, mankind falls. God comes, Adam, where are you? Did you eat of the tree which I told you not to eat? And Adam says, God, you're to blame because you gave me the woman who is secondarily to blame. And then Eve says, it wasn't me, the serpent told me it was good to eat, so I ate it. Everybody's passing the blame. The battle of the sexes begins there. Man and wife are broken. And so the first sign that the Son of God does when he comes into the world and announces himself as the Messiah is he protects a marriage. And he blesses a marriage. Imagine the social shame in that culture if you're to run out of wine at your wedding. You would always be known as the husband and wife who at their wedding did not provide for their guests. So Jesus saves them from that shame. He gives them the best wedding party that there has ever been, because it's the best wine that this world has, taste-wise, ever known. Communion wine is sometimes tasteful, and it's better wine. That's beside the point. So then the second sign, what is he doing? He's first started the repair on marriage. And what's another thing that came from the fall? Well, sickness, death, pain, the destruction of the human body. And the second sign is he's restoring a human body to health. Now this child, the son, will die one day. But for the moment, Jesus is undoing the effects of the fall, at least to a little degree here and there, before he ultimately signs off on it on the cross with tetelestai. But we should get back to the translation. So I'm going to go ahead and write this down, and then we'll come to our final clause and be done with chapter 4. Cum, Wanisset is not the right form to be object of a preposition, so instead this is a cum clause, with T as our ending, third singular. Isse is our perfect infinitive, which then tells us pluperfect subjunctive. Also active, should probably add that in. A prepositional phrase, eudaia in, new prepositional phrase right there, plus ablative, singular, feminine. Galileam, am right there tells us that in is taking the accusative of place into which, so place from which, place into which, also singular and feminine. Cum telling us the circumstances, the time, the adversity, so although he had no. That doesn't make any sense. Instead, since we've got John talking about the events taking place in what Jesus is doing, all this is happening, I'm going to say, while he had come from Judea into Galilee, so he is on the northward trek away from Jerusalem, and he's now in Galilee, away from the scribes and the Pharisees, away from the feasts and festivals of Jerusalem. But pretty soon, I don't remember which chapter, maybe even the next chapter, but for some reason I want to say chapter 7, he's going to turn around, and the entire rest of the book of John is his slow march up the hill to Golgotha. But let's write this down. All right, there's that. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in its own context and say goodbye to chapter 4. Therefore, Father knew that that hour was in which Jesus said to him, "Your son lives." And he believed, and his whole house. Again, this second sign Jesus did while he had come from Judea into Galilee. There we have it. Thank you very much for joining me for chapter 4. I hope that you have a very good day, and I hope that you join me for chapter 5. When I get around to that in 3 weeks with the Latin, I think? Probably, yeah. Vale.